Welcome to Shredder Fanfic. Like, subscribe, and hype video. Join members to gain early access to new videos.
After the main character dies inside of his previous life, he wakes up as Rimuru and says is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon? What will Rimuru do?
Danmachi, what if I am reborn as Rimura? Chapter 16, The Sword She Carried Alone. Lethe stood at the boundary stone without looking back. Her hands were steady, her gear was clean, her armor basic leather reinforced with steel-threaded plates, worn properly, no shortcuts. Her short sword rested at her hip in the same loop I taught her to tie 2 weeks ago. There were 5 people behind her, all younger, all less trained. Not a single one of them had been below floor 10 before today. They were hers. I was not coming. I stood on the roof of the old watchtower near Babel's second ring, watching from a distance as the team assembled at the south gate. A guild runner handed Lethe the stamped permit, muttered something about keeping the party within bounds, then walked off without waiting for questions. No one noticed me. No one ever did unless I allowed it. Lethe took the paper, read it once, and nodded. She said nothing. Then she turned and led her party toward the elevator. She didn't glance back. Good. They descended past floor 7 before the first test came. It wasn't a monster. It was the silence. None of them had trained in this kind of silence. The air on these floors was heavier than the ones above, saturated with mana, tension, and old blood. The walls were tight here, narrow stone tunnels instead of open caverns. No wind, no echo, just the sound of breathing and footsteps. Lethe adjusted her sword's position as they entered the corridor. She kept her team close. Hina on the right, still too jumpy, still hesitating before every second step. Garin on the left, solid stance, good weight distribution, but easily distracted. Roke behind her, quiet, good timing, still too slow to act first. And 2 new additions, Fess, a dagger user with a penchant for backline skirmishing, and Nira, a support specialist with a healing bell staff. Lethe had picked them herself. She refused my help doing it. I need to see what they'll be like when I'm the one giving orders, she'd said. Not you. I'd agreed. Now we would find out. The monsters came on floor 9. Quickspawn goblins, 2 waves, nothing out of pattern. Lethe saw the mana shifts before they emerged. She'd been watching the walls for that signature now, how the surface shifted just a little, like breath under wet stone. Garin left, Hina front with me. Roke rear check, Fess on my mark, Nira wait. Her voice was level, not loud. Command voice, not panic voice. The goblins came fast, 4 first, then 6 more. Hina lunged too early. Lethe caught her sleeve and yanked her back, just in time for the first goblin to overextend. 1 clean cut. Lethe didn't hesitate. Garin met the flank with a wide sweep, too wide. Lethe corrected with a sidestep, let the next goblin trip on his exposed footwork, and buried her sword in its throat before he could recover. Fix your hips, she snapped at him. You're swinging like it's a show. Roke took 1 goblin on the rear angle, didn't kill it, wounded it. Lethe noticed, but didn't fix it herself. She let Fess clean up the mistake with a quick stab from behind. Good. Let them solve it. Lethe kept her position at the center of the formation, sword low, eyes up. No fear. But not blind. She didn't act unless she had to. She let them bleed the noise out of their own movements. Let them feel the sweat and the fear. Let them get hit once, twice, by glancing blows. Then she said, "Stop moving." Everyone froze. She pointed to the right wall. That surface is off pattern. Mana density's down 2 points. What does that mean? Silence. Then Nira said, "Possible unstable node." Lethe nodded, and could lead to a false floor. Lethe turned to Roke. "Why are you standing over it?" Roke looked down. pale. Then he moved back quickly, embarrassed. Lethe didn't mock him. She said, "Stay sharp. The dungeon doesn't care about intentions." They moved forward. Floor 10 was worse. The corridors gave way to small rooms. The ceilings narrowed. The monsters didn't come in predictable clusters anymore. They came in pairs, sometimes singly, sometimes not at all. The dungeon was always worst when it was quiet. That's when you knew it was watching. Lethe kept the team tight. But she could feel the nerves. The two new recruits had never fought in this light. The walls glowed faintly here, but not enough. Shadows moved where they shouldn't. Roke started checking behind them every 10 seconds. Garin muttered something about his sword grip. Then the scream came. Not theirs. Another team. Ahead. Lethe raised her hand. Everyone stopped. She pointed at Fess. Scout left corridor. Roke cover. They moved. The scream didn't repeat. Lethe stepped to the mouth of the tunnel and listened. Then she advanced alone. 10 meters, 15. The bodies were there. 3 adventurers, older, not dead, but unconscious. Mana drained, no visible wounds. Slimes. Rare on this floor, but not impossible. Silent eaters, magic leeches. Lethe looked up. Saw the shimmer. "Back," she shouted. Too late. 2 slimes dropped from the ceiling. One landed on her left arm, the other toward her thigh. She twisted, hard, flung one off, stabbed the other with her right hand. The blade burned through it, but the acid was already biting into her armor. Roke ran up first. Bad. Too fast. She turned and shouted, "Formation 2 now." Hina reached her in time, covered her left. Garin stepped too slow again. Slime struck his leg. He dropped. Nira rushed forward. No coordination, no discipline. Lethe caught her shoulder. "Stay back. Heal Garin, that's it." She re-engaged. The third slime dropped behind her. Fess called out, "Sharp." Lethe didn't dodge. She stepped through the slime instead, let it graze her, and spun. Buried her blade straight into its core. Pain didn't matter. Her left arm burned. Still moved. They finished the fight 2 minutes later. 3 wounded. 2 blades corroded. 1 shaken team. Lethe stood. Tore off her outer sleeve. The acid had eaten through the cloth. Her skin was red, blistered. She looked at it. Didn't react. Nira, heal what you can. Garin, you're moving to rear. Fess takes point next room. No one argued. They just listened. Back above, I waited. I didn't interfere. Not once. But I watched. I felt the pulse of her mana as it flared, dropped, stabilized. I tracked the movement of her teammates through the dungeon's outer sensory layer, through the dungeon's own logic. I read the choices she made in real time. She was bleeding. She was tired. She wasn't breaking. That mattered. She returned just before dusk. Her arm was bandaged. Her blade was cleaned. Her boots were worn. Her face was calm. She said nothing when she entered the house. The others were quieter. Lethe walked straight to the sink, washed her hands, and poured a cup of water. She drank half of it before she spoke. We made it to floor 10. Calliope nodded. No casualties. Wounds. 3, all stable. Calliope turned to me. I said, "And?" Lethe looked at me. "I can do it." "Can you do it again?" "Yes." "Can you do it better?" "Yes." "Can you do it without expecting praise?" "Yes." I stood, took 1 step toward her, then handed her a small, flat object wrapped in cloth. She took it without opening it. What is it? Your next sword, I said. She unwrapped it. Simple handle, shorter than her current blade. Light curve, no engraving, not enchanted. Just better. She looked up. Why now? Because you're ready. She nodded. Didn't smile. Didn't cry. Just nodded. Then walked upstairs without a word. She'd done it. Not because she wanted to impress me, but because she knew I wouldn't save her. She'd done it anyway. That mattered. It meant she'd survive. Long enough to be something the city hadn't seen yet. Someone who didn't kneel, didn't beg, and didn't follow blindly. Someone who led. Chapter 17. Lethe names the blade. The morning after her return, Lethe woke before the others. She didn't speak. Didn't knock. Didn't ask for permission. She just walked out of the house at dawn, sword wrapped in cloth, boots silent on stone, steps steady. She didn't tell Garin where she was going. She didn't leave a note for Calliope. She didn't wait for me. She didn't have to. I followed anyway. Not to interfere, not to test. Just to see what she would do. Tsubaki's forge was already lit when Lethe arrived. The door wasn't locked. It never was. No guards, no signs, no open invitation, just a smithy's seal above the frame, scarred with soot and years of heat. The anvil's sound echoed from the back. Tsubaki wasn't alone. Two apprentices were reshaping a shattered lance over a low flame. Neither looked up when Lethe entered. Tsubaki did. She didn't greet her. Didn't stand. She leaned over a hammer table, checking the edge on a blade no one else in the city could even hold without gloves. Lethe walked to the center of the room. She waited until Tsubaki looked up. Then quietly, Lethe set the wrapped blade down. Tsubaki's eyes moved to it. She said nothing. Lethe unwrapped it. The blade reflected the morning light through the forge's upper slit. It was curved but light, forged from steel folded too many times to count, polished smooth. The grip was leather-wrapped, all dark, no ornament, no runes, just strength. Lethe placed both hands on it, one at the grip, one just below the guard. I want to name it, she said. Tsubaki didn't nod. Didn't smile. She just asked, why? Lethe answered immediately. Because it didn't break when I did. Tsubaki leaned back. Lethe's voice stayed even. I fought a flaw too deep. I bled. I didn't win clean, but the blade held. It burned with me, and I didn't throw it away. Tsubaki said, you think a name makes it real. No, I think surviving makes it worth remembering. That earned the smallest twitch of Tsubaki's eyebrow. Lethe looked down at the steel again. I want to name it Anchor. Silence. Then one of the apprentices behind her muttered, Anchor's not a warrior's name. Lethe didn't turn. Tsubaki did. The apprentice froze. Tsubaki didn't raise her voice. You ever hold when you're tired? The apprentice swallowed. Yes, ma'am. You ever stay when running would have been easier? Yes, ma'am. You ever stop someone else from falling when you wanted to collapse yourself? He hesitated. No, ma'am. Tsubaki turned back to Lethe. Anchor it is. Lethe exhaled once, quietly, not relief, not victory, just breath. Tsubaki walked around the table. You name it, it's yours. No refund. I don't want a refund. Good. Tsubaki held out her hand. Lethe passed her the sword. Tsubaki turned it over once, twice, checked the spine, the tension, the inner weld points. Didn't chip. No. Didn't warp. No. Then you used it right. Lethe didn't smile. She just nodded. Tsubaki passed it back. Lethe took it with both hands. Cradled it. Not like a prize. Like a tool. She didn't speak to me until she was halfway home. She knew I was there. She always did. You saw all of it. Yes. You agree with the name. Yes. Lethe kept walking. Then she said, I'm not trying to be you. Good. Because I wouldn't survive it. No. But I can survive this. You already did. She stopped in front of the house. She looked down at the blade. Then at me. Then up. No hesitation, no shame. Just presence. I'm not going to fail again. I believe you. She nodded once. Went inside. Didn't look back. Calliope was waiting in the kitchen. She didn't comment on the sword. Just passed Lethe a warm cloth and gestured toward the table. Lethe sat, ate, rested the blade across her knees. No one touched it. That was enough. That night, I went to the roof again. Calliope joined me. She's changed. Yes. You expected that. Yes. Now what? She'll take lead again, but next time I won't be watching. Calliope sipped her tea. Are you proud of her? No. Calliope raised an eyebrow. I said I'm impressed. Pride implies I gave her something. I didn't. She found it. Calliope nodded once. She's going to attract attention. She already has. You'll let her face it alone. If I don't, they'll never see who she really is. And you. They already know who I am. Chapter 18, Where Gods Vote Quietly. The guild tower sealed its inner doors on the 4th hour of daylight. That was their way of saying no interruptions would be tolerated, officially. The tower didn't lock unless a divine conclave had already begun. I stood 2 blocks away, watching the upper panels of stained glass dim as the meeting began. No lights in the windows, no guards on the stair, no scribe at the door. It was supposed to look like nothing at all was happening. But inside, it had already started. They didn't call it a vote, not out loud, not in writing. It was a discussion of interdeity protocol alignment. The kind of language only cowards used to make power sound civil. The kind of cowardice that left Soma in control of a familiar full of addicts and let Freya devour Arario one soul at a time without once lifting a blade. I was not invited. Calliope was. They sent a sealed notice 2 days prior, requesting her presence as a formally registered deity with historical insight into non-aggressive influence models. That was their term for me. She didn't ask me if she should attend. She went. Now she was up there alone. And I stood outside, watching the street empty around me, thinking through the rules they were about to try to codify. I knew the game. They would propose a limitation on mortal influence, specifically one that required familiar consent and guild oversight before a mortal could act in a politically meaningful capacity beyond designated dungeon operations. Meaning, I was moving too much, drawing too many, speaking too plainly. This wasn't about fear, not yet. This was about control. They wanted me leashed before I got too big to carry. I waited until the 6th bell. Then I walked. The tower's front steps were wide, shallow stone carved with faded emblems of neutrality and law. None of the gods who walked these stairs had respected either for over a century. The marble inlay of the guild's crest was worn where boots scraped it daily. They hadn't repaired it. They liked the erosion. It made it feel permanent. I pushed the door. It wasn't locked. That was their second mistake. A man in a guild uniform stepped forward as I entered the second hall. Sir, this level is. I looked at him once. He stepped aside. Third mistake. I reached the inner chamber in under a minute. 12 chairs in a circle, 11 filled, most by lesser gods who had made their name not by war or divinity, but by placement, by patience, by slow erosion of attention. Ares was not present. Hestia had refused to come. Ishtar was dead. Freya had sent a proxy. Loki had not sent anyone at all. Calliope stood behind the circle, unseated. They had not given her a chair. I entered. I didn't stop at the threshold. A few eyes turned. One god, a thick-chested man with golden cuffs, stood. You are not. I walked to the center. Calliope didn't speak. The god continued. This is a sealed conclave. I looked at him. Then seal it. He didn't sit. I took his chair. He stepped back. Is this how you conduct law now? I asked. Unwitnessed, unrecorded, without quorum. We are within procedural. No, you're not. The goddess beside him, tall, dark-veiled, eyes empty, frowned faintly. You speak without station. I speak because your silence has cost lives. There are rules, someone muttered. Yes, I said, but none of you remember who they were meant to protect. Calliope stepped beside me, not behind, not in front. Beside. You came, she said. They left the door open. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. The golden-cuffed god tried again. We convened to discuss the boundaries of mortal authority in civil matters. Say it clearly, I told him. He hesitated. Then you've moved too far. Defined too far. You've destabilized familiar alliances. No, I've stopped families from collapsing under debt. You've spoken against divine contracts. I've spoken against abuse. You've made yourself a center of power. I didn't ask for anyone to follow. They follow anyway, the veiled goddess said. Yes, that is unacceptable. Then say it to them. They're mortals. They bleed, I said. They starve, they fight. And when they look up, they see gods who drink and fuck and fight and do nothing. The room stayed quiet. I stood slowly. You want to limit me? No answer. You want to reduce what I can say, where I can go, how I can speak to those who ask for help. Still nothing. Then do it, say it aloud. Calliope's voice was quiet. None of you are ready to hear what happens if you win. The veiled goddess narrowed her eyes. You presume he would strike. I don't presume, Calliope said. I remember. None of them responded. I said, I will not obey. Silence. I will not kneel. I will not sign. I will not register. I will not hide. If someone needs help, I will give it. If someone attacks, I will respond. If someone tries to use the rules to hurt the weak, I will break those rules. The golden-cuffed god lowered his eyes. The veiled goddess leaned forward. You're not a god. No, I said, but you should be glad of that. A long, slow silence. Then one of them, a god I didn't know, thin, sunken eyes, spoke softly. We cannot stop him. The veiled one said, then we contain him. No, Calliope said, you don't. She stepped fully into the circle. Her voice didn't rise. He came because you didn't act. He rose because you all sat. He's not the fire, he's the wind after it. You cannot contain him. You can only decide whether you'll be part of what happens next. No one moved. I stood. I'll leave now, I said. And if we meet again, the golden god asked. You'll remember I warned you. I didn't speak until we were back on the street. Calliope said, they'll try again. Yes. They'll do it cleaner next time. Yes. They're scared now. Not enough. Calliope nodded. I'm not going to stop them, she said. I wouldn't ask you to. She looked up at me. You don't need protection. No. You don't need approval. No. But you came anyway. Yes. She nodded once, then kept walking. That evening, Lethe brought Anka down into the training yard and began practicing without instruction. She didn't ask for corrections. She didn't need them. Roke watched from the wall. Garin tried to copy one of her cuts and overbalanced. She didn't help him. Hina adjusted her stance 3 times before settling into something close to usable. Lethe didn't speak to them. She just kept moving. The gods wouldn't vote again so soon. They would wait. They always did. They thought time was theirs. But they were wrong. Time had already started moving. And it wasn't on their side anymore. Chapter 19. The drunk god comes sober. It was still dark when he arrived. Not twilight dark, not rain cloud dark. True dark, the kind that pressed up against the windowpins and soaked into the grain of the floorboards. The hour between night and morning when even birds held their breath. He didn't knock. The door opened with the quiet scrape of wood against wood. He didn't stumble. He didn't reek of alcohol. He didn't hum or smile or try to charm the shadows with warmth. He just walked in. Soma. I was already at the table. He looked older than the last time we'd met. Not in his face. Gods didn't age like that, but in the way he carried the stillness around him. A man-shaped silence. No divine radiance. No oppressive pressure. Just the heavy quiet of a deity who'd stopped pretending to believe his own excuses. Calliope was still upstairs. Lethe was asleep, her sword beside her bed, her hand resting on the scabbard like it had grown there. Soma didn't ask for permission. He sat across from me, set a sealed bottle on the table. Then nothing, no words, no movement. I didn't break the silence. He reached for the bottle, pulled the cork with one hand, didn't pour, didn't drink. He stared at the liquid, then said softly, "You're teaching her well. She's teaching herself." He nodded. "You should be more careful with that." "Why?" "They'll take her from you if they can. She isn't mine." Soma looked up. "You said that like you meant it." "I did." He exhaled, still not drinking, still not looking away. "I never meant to build what I built," he said. I didn't respond. He went on. "I started with purity, something clean, something removed from pressure. The wine was a method, the silence a refuge. I thought if I just removed myself from their noise, I could make something better. And when that failed..." He laughed, no humor. "I was already surrounded by those who misunderstood me. They wanted ecstasy, escape. I gave them purity. They drank anyway. You watched it happen. I refused to see it. You let them die. I let myself rot. I didn't move." Soma swirled the bottle. "They say you're different. I am. They say you're dangerous. I am. They say you want to dismantle the system. No." He raised an eyebrow. "I want to replace it with something that can't be manipulated by people like you." He accepted that without flinching. "You think I came to defend myself?" "No." "You think I want forgiveness?" "No." "You're right." I waited. Soma leaned back, bottle untouched. "She carries my name." I nodded. "She still bleeds it." "I know. Do you think I deserve to speak to her?" "No." "But you'll let me?" "No." He blinked. "I said if she wants to hear you, she'll come down. If she doesn't, you'll leave without seeing her." He didn't argue. "I brought this," he said, gesturing at the bottle. "Not as a symbol, not as a weapon. It's a different blend. No extract, no enchantment, just old ingredients, left to age the right way. Why? To prove I remember how. He stood, lifted the bottle, set it gently on the counter. I won't ask her to forgive me. You couldn't afford it. She wouldn't offer it. You're learning. He turned toward the door, paused, said she'll outgrow you. Good. Soma opened the door. Let the dark in again. Then he left. Lethe came down 15 minutes later. Hair still damp from sweat, eyes clear. She looked around once, saw the bottle, saw the faint outline of footprints in the dust by the door. Then looked at me. He came. Yes. What did he say? Nothing important. Did you let him stay? No. She walked past the table, picked up the bottle, read the label, said he never made this before. No. He remembers. Yes. She didn't drink. She didn't throw it away. She placed it back where he'd left it. Then she said, I don't care. I nodded. She added, but I wanted to know that he still does. She turned toward the training yard. Didn't speak again. That day she drilled until her hands blistered. She didn't bandage them. She didn't complain. Garin tried to follow one of her sequences and fell hard on his shoulder. She didn't help him up, but she didn't laugh either. She was changing, not softening, clarifying, becoming herself. Anchor was sharp now, not just in blade but in presence. It sang in the air when she moved, quiet, serious, uncompromising. The others began to mirror her without knowing they were doing it. That night, I told Calliope, he won't return. She nodded. Did you say anything cruel? No. Did he say anything true? Yes. She leaned on the balcony railing. He's not wrong, she said. She will outgrow us. She's meant to. Calliope looked at me. You're not afraid of being passed. I'm building the people who'll carry what comes after. She tilted her head. And if they forget you, they won't. Because of what you taught them. No. I looked down into the street. The torches flickered as the wind passed low between the walls. They won't forget me, I said, because I'll still be standing when they're done learning. Calliope smiled. No warmth. Just pride. 2 days later, a new missive arrived. Hermes again. Short, folded once. You've made a god sober. That's not small. But the next one won't be so willing. Keep your blade close, and don't let her go underground without you. 8. I burned the note. Didn't smile. Didn't worry. Hermes wasn't wrong. Chapter 20, when the dungeon watches back. It started as a shift in the spawn rate, a barely noticed fluctuation in the monster cycles on floors 13 through 15. At first, the guild dismissed it as seasonal variance. A few high-level adventurers chalked it up to the full moon, but the dungeon doesn't care about moons, and it doesn't make mistakes unless it's changing. I noticed it first through the air. On the 13th day since Soma's visit, I descended to floor 12 and found that the temperature had dropped 3 degrees. That never happened. The dungeon didn't allow for drift, not there, not on controlled floors. Lethe noticed it on the 14th. Her return from floor 11 was delayed an hour. She reported a double spawn near the southern corridor. Goblins in groups of 9, normally 6. No sign of collapse or distortion, just more. The next morning, 3 separate familiar posted notices on the guild's board. One lost a scout, no body recovered. One reported a pack of monsters behaving like a coordinated unit, unusual for that depth. and one saw the walls breathe. That was when I told Lethe she wasn't going back underground without me. She disagreed, and she said so directly. I led 3 missions clean, she said. No wounds, no losses. Floor 10 isn't dangerous anymore. You're right, I said, but we're not talking about floor 10. Then floor 11. Also not what we're talking about. She folded her arms. You're not worried about me. I'm not. Then what? I'm worried about the dungeon. That made her pause. Not for long. Then I can handle it. No, you can survive it. Her jaw clenched. There's a difference, I said. She didn't look away. She wasn't angry, but she wasn't yielding either. I added, you're ready. That's why you'll follow orders now. That did it. She stepped back, then nodded. Then when do we leave? Floor 13 didn't feel wrong. Not at first. The descent was clean, no pressure changes, no monster ambushes. The walls were smooth. The mana density was measurable within tolerance, but the silence was wrong. No breathing from the deeper tunnels, no distant echoes of movement. No blood. Even when monsters died here, their scent usually lingered. Not today. Lethe carried Anchor on her back now, blade wrapped in waxed cloth to shield it from corrosion. I'd reinforced the hilt with a thin thread of steel-eating slime secretion, just enough to prevent surface rust from contact. She didn't need my enhancements, but I gave them anyway. We reached the 3rd junction and halted. 2 corridors. North Tunnel was marked by fresh scarring, claw marks but deep, not Minotaur, not Goblin. South Tunnel had no markings at all, just clean stone and undisturbed dust. Lethe looked at me. I didn't point. She chose the north. Good. We found the first corpse 10 minutes later. Human. Male. Mid-20s. No familiar crest. Gear scavenged, not stripped, ripped. His chest was collapsed inward, not pierced, like something had crushed it from above and then let him fall in place. No burn marks, no acid, no weapon signature. Just destruction. Lethe knelt beside him, checked the wrist for any guild tag, found none. She didn't speak. She didn't close his eyes. She just stood and kept walking. The next body was a goblin. Head missing. Clean separation. No weapon could cut that cleanly without cauterizing. No level 1 should have done it. But the wound was cold. Lethe whispered. He was alive after the cut. How do you know? She pointed at the wall. Blood. Streaked downward. Collapsed drag pattern. She said he crawled 3 steps. Then stood again. No fear. But something deeper now. Awareness. I felt it first. Not mana pressure. Intent. The dungeon doesn't watch the way gods or monsters do. It doesn't have eyes. It doesn't breathe. It just knows. And when it doesn't like you, it lets you feel that knowing. On floor 13, that knowing pressed against the back of my neck like a weightless chain. Lethe stopped. Said, there. She pointed down a side shaft. Stone narrow, disused. But not empty. I felt it too. The air bent inward. Like something was drawing breath. We moved slow. No sound. No lights. Lethe didn't ask what we were walking into. She just walked. At the center of the shaft, the ground changed. Not visibly. The mana shifted. Condensed. Thickened. I stepped forward. The dungeon opened. Not with noise. Not with pressure. Just space. A passage where no passage should exist. It hadn't been there yesterday. It might not be there tomorrow. Lethe said, "It's not a trap." "No, it's a test." "Yes." We walked in. The chamber wasn't large. It was round, carved with stone that didn't match the rest of the floor, smooth, not dungeon-made, built, etched with markings I didn't recognize. No script, just shapes. 4 pillars. 3 had cracks. The 4th was perfect. In the center, nothing. No chest, no boss, no prize. Lethe stepped inside first. I waited 1 second longer. Then entered. The moment both feet passed the threshold, the air locked. Not tight. Just decided. Lethe didn't draw anchor. I didn't activate my skills. The room waited. Then the wall across from us opened. It didn't make sense. Because nothing came out. Not a monster. Not a spell. Just a feeling. Pain. Old pain. Raw and quiet. Like a memory buried too long. Lethe whispered, "It's not alive." "No. But it's angry." "Yes." I stepped forward. Lethe didn't stop me. The center of the room responded. Not with light. With presence. A shimmer. A reflection that wasn't mine. Then a voice. Not sound. Words in the mind. Cold. Neutral. "This is not your place." I didn't speak. "You are not part of the pattern." Still I waited. "Your core does not match the history." I whispered, "Correct." The voice paused. "Why are you here?" "To observe." "Why does she follow you?" "She chooses to." "Why?" I said nothing. Lethe answered. "I follow because he doesn't lie." The room reacted. Light barely. One of the broken pillars shimmered. Mended. Not fully. But healing. Truth is insufficient. Lethe stepped beside me. "Then watch me. You are not of this root." "I don't care." "You will." The room stopped. Then released. The air eased. The presence faded. The doorway behind us opened. Lethe exhaled. "I don't like this floor." "Neither do I." "We're coming back." "Yes." "When?" "When it closes." We left the shaft. The dungeon did not send monsters. Not one. All the way to the surface. It wasn't mercy. It was patience. And it was watching. That night, I drew the diagram of the chamber on the floor of the courtyard. Lethe watched. Calliope stood nearby, arms crossed. "You found an interface," she said. "Yes." "Dungeon origin." "No, inserted later." "By who?" "I don't know yet." She looked at Lethe. She wasn't afraid. I would have sent her home if she had been. Lethe spoke. "It didn't hate us." "No," I said. "It was disappointed." Chapter 21. A pillar in her dream. Lethe didn't scream. Her eyes snapped open in silence, her hand already gripping the handle of anchor before she fully woke. The room was dark, not black, just unlit. Her breaths were shallow, nose flared, forehead damp. She didn't look around. She already knew where she was. She was awake. But part of her mind, some fragment still slick with mana, remained in the chamber under floor 13. The 4th pillar, the one that hadn't been broken. It was standing in her dream. And this time, it had been speaking. Not like the voice that had echoed in the dungeon chamber. That voice had been cold and impartial. This voice had rhythm, not speech, not syllables, just structure. Lethe sat upright, pushed the sweat from her face, then stood. She didn't call for anyone, didn't knock on my door. She walked outside. The stars were visible overhead. The wind carried the smell of iron from the training yard's weapon racks. Her bare feet made no sound on the packed stone floor of the courtyard. She stood in the center of the yard, staring at the chalk marks I'd drawn days ago. The circular layout of the secret chamber, the 4 pillars, the nothing in the center. Lethe walked toward the mark that had once represented the 4th pillar. She crouched, then drew something new. I opened the upstairs window and watched without speaking. She didn't look up. She drew 6 intersecting lines through the center of the pillar's mark. 2 long, 2 medium, 2 short, each passed at a diagonal. Then a curve. Then a point. It was like watching someone trace words they'd never been taught. I descended slowly, no sound. She didn't turn as I approached. When I reached her side, I looked down. What she'd drawn wasn't random. It was a sigil. Old. One I hadn't seen before. But it meant something. I crouched beside her. Lethe's voice was quiet, dry. I saw it standing, no cracks, whole. In the dream. No, it was inside the dream. There's a difference. Yes. I waited. Lethe placed the piece of chalk beside the symbol and looked at me. It wasn't speaking to you. I know. It wasn't angry at you. I know. But it still wanted your answer. Yes. She said nothing for a while. Then, I think it was listening to me. The next morning, she came to breakfast late. Calliope noticed immediately. Lethe was never late. She never slept in. She never missed the first drill. She sat down across from me, arms folded, eyes not tired but pulled, like something inside her had been up all night. I didn't ask. She would tell me when she was ready. Calliope poured tea. Lethe drank half before speaking. It marked me. Explain, I said. Lethe raised her hand. Opened her fingers. No tattoo. No burn. But beneath the skin, within the blood, I could see the mana signature shift. It pulsed faintly, measured, like a heartbeat trying to sync with another. Calliope leaned closer. Not divine, she said. No, I answered, older. Lethe said, I think it chose me. Why you? She didn't shrug. Didn't speculate. She answered simply, because I wasn't afraid. She dreamed again the next night. This time I was watching. Not through magic, not through force, just sitting beside her cot, eyes open, sensing her breath, her blood, the way her mana threaded through her limbs like wire woven into cloth. She twitched once, didn't wake. Her pulse dropped to dungeon floor levels. That wasn't normal. Then the sigil flared under her skin. Not light. Just pressure. The shape appeared again, brief, like an afterimage. I reached out and touched her shoulder. Her eyes opened. Slow, calm. I saw the rest, she said. What was it? It's not a pillar. No. It's a lock. She brought me back to the courtyard and traced the symbol again. This time, she added a second layer, curved arcs above the diagonals, intersecting at precise angles. She wasn't guessing. She remembered. I memorized the pattern. Not to copy it. To recognize it. Somewhere in my own archives of devoured knowledge, of systems studied and absorbed, I'd seen something close to it. Not from this world, but adjacent. Not divine, but not mortal either. A sigil from something between. Lethe said, it's part of a cycle. Do you know what opens it? No. Do you know who made it? No. But you're still dreaming of it. She nodded. Then quieter. It knows I'm listening. On the third day, the sigil changed again. This time, it appeared on the wall. Of her room. Faint carved into the wood, not burned, not inked. It grew there. The wood hadn't been disturbed, but the grain curled into the symbol's shape. Lethe didn't panic. She didn't even tell me immediately. She just marked it, copied it, and returned to drills. Roke saw it, didn't understand it. Asked no questions. Lethe's authority in the group had shifted. No one challenged her now. Not because she'd asked for it. Because she didn't need to ask. They felt it. Even Garin started watching her footwork instead of mine. On the fourth day, the dreams stopped. Not because the sigil faded. It solidified. No more dream fragments. Just presence. Lethe woke with knowledge instead of visions. I know how to find it again. You mean the chamber? Know what's under it. There was nothing under it. Yes. She didn't elaborate. But I believed her. That afternoon, the shaft on floor 13 was gone. Not caved in, not collapsed. Gone. The walls where the passage had been were seamless now. No cracks, no residual mana. The map I'd made was still accurate in distance, but not in reality. Lethe looked at the wall. Said nothing. Then turned to me. I can get in again. How? By knowing where it's not. We didn't force it. We returned to the surface. Lethe wrote down everything, not for the guild, not for the records. For herself. A log. A memory. A message if something ever went wrong. She wrote it in 4 languages. The 5th she hadn't yet learned. But it was already forming in her dreams. That evening, I sat with Calliope in the garden, behind the main building. She watched Lethe through the open window. She's beyond you now. She's still here. But not forever. No. Calliope tilted her head. Does it bother you? No. Would it? If she stopped asking questions, yes. Calliope watched her longer. She's being chosen. Yes. Not by a god. No. And not by the dungeon. No. Then what? I don't know yet. Calliope said nothing. Lethe's final words that night, before sleep, were quiet. But not private. Something old wants me to remember something it forgot. I said, then don't let it down. She nodded. Closed her eyes. Slept. The sigil on her wall pulsed once. Then held steady. Chapter 22. The Guild demands the truth. They didn't knock. Guild enforcers never did when they believed they had the right, or when they were scared. Fear made bureaucracy behave like authority. I heard their boots first. 3 sets, soft-soled, wrong for real combat, but heavy enough to make presence known. They stopped at the outer gate and didn't speak. No declaration. No bell. That was their first mistake. Lethe was in the courtyard when they arrived. Anchor rested against the edge of the old water trough, unsheathed, half-cleaned. Her drills had slowed over the past 2 days, not because she was distracted, but because she'd begun refining instead of practicing. Less motion, more economy. She hadn't asked for help. She didn't wait for feedback. She adjusted on her own, posture shifting incrementally until her strikes barely needed correction. When the gate swung open and the first guild officer stepped inside, Lethe didn't flinch. She didn't move. She didn't even blink. The lead officer, a woman named Ennis, brown hair tied back, face like a tax ledger, raised her left hand, and said the words she thought mattered. By order of the Guild Judiciary Council, we require an interview with the girl regarding unauthorized interaction with restricted dungeon strata and irregular magical sigil exposure. Lethe wiped the sweat from her neck. Didn't look up. Didn't answer. Calliope stepped out of the main house before I did. She moved slowly, no cloak, no weapon, sleeves rolled to her elbows. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes moved carefully, marking the positions of each officer, noting the swords at their hips and the way their formation didn't match enforcement procedure. Not arrest. Not escort. Not warning. This was intimidation. Amateur intimidation. Calliope's voice was calm. I wasn't notified. Ennis didn't meet her eyes. The Guild does not require notification to question unaffiliated adventurers on matters of dungeon safety. She's not unaffiliated, I said, stepping behind them. Ennis turned. Her jaw tightened slightly, but she didn't back off. Lethe Lies is not registered under any recognized familiar or guild-designated authority. She falls under my authority, I said, which isn't legally recognized. Yet. That hit not deeply, but visibly. She recovered. You've already refused to submit your activities for review. You've declined all invitations to confirm your affiliations. That alone places you under potential censure. Do it, I said. Bring censure. We'll see how that plays in the streets. Ennis hesitated, then made the mistake of turning her attention to Lethe. You. Don't, I said. She turned back to me. This is not coercive. It's a formal request. Backed by armed men. They're not drawn. They wouldn't live long if they were. One of the enforcers, taller, blonde, unsure of his rank, took a half-step toward Lethe. Lethe didn't move. She just said flatly, I'll speak when I choose to. Ennis looked between us, then down at the sword. It was clean now. Lethe had finished wiping it while they stood there. Calliope stepped between us. She said, if the Guild wants information, it will come through the channels you refuse to honor for 3 weeks. Ennis tried to recover her footing. The sigil has been reported by at least 2 independent sources. You're not the only ones who have seen it. Calliope didn't react. I already knew what she would say. But she surprised me. She said nothing, because Lethe answered first. Her voice was clear, not loud, not hostile, but absolutely unafraid. What's the Guild so afraid of? Ennis turned. What? Lethe stepped forward, anchor still in one hand, not raised, just there. You want to know what the sigil means? Yes. You want to know if it's divine? Yes. If it's connected to monsters? Yes. Or something older? Yes. Lethe stopped in front of her. I don't know yet. Silence. Lethe looked past her, at the Guild's crest sewn into her lapel. Why didn't you descend yourselves? It's not our role. You sent children. Adventurers volunteer. You sent amateurs. That's the system. Lethe leaned forward. I bled on that floor. Ennis didn't respond. Lethe wasn't shaking. Her voice wasn't rising. She didn't need volume. I listened when the dungeon wanted silence. I stood in a room that isn't supposed to exist and heard something speak without sound. I came back. I didn't die. And you think bringing 3 enforcers makes me nervous? Ennis tried to recover authority. Do you know what it is? No. Then what did it do? Lethe didn't blink. It saw me. Ennis's breath caught. Calliope stepped in. This interview is concluded. It's not. You came to provoke. You failed. The enforcers didn't move. I stepped forward once. They moved. We didn't talk about it for hours after. Lethe returned to training. Calliope wrote a letter. I burned it. Not because it was wrong, but because there wasn't a single word she'd written that would be taken seriously. That was the point. We weren't going to defend the truth anymore. We would let it stand. That night, Calliope asked the only question that mattered. Do you trust them not to escalate? No, I said. What's the next move? They'll try to isolate Lethe, make her uncertain, offer her something. From who? Freya. Calliope frowned. That's soon. She likes to move before the wound closes. Calliope's gaze shifted to Lethe's room. She's not a child. No. But they'll still treat her like one. Yes. She won't forgive them. She doesn't need to. The next morning, a message arrived. Not paper. Not courier. A symbol. Pressed into the dirt of the outer yard. The same sigil. Smaller. Perfectly shaped. And marked. Untouched. Lethe was the first to find it. She didn't speak. She just knelt, traced it once, then looked up at the morning sky. Calliope stood at her side. Said nothing. I didn't approach. The dungeon had spoken again. But this time, not from inside. This time, it was reaching out. Chapter 23, The Second Dreamer. He collapsed at the edge of the courtyard before anyone saw him coming. I didn't sense him until he was 10 steps from the gate, barefoot, bleeding from one shoulder, clutching a scrap of waxed parchment against his chest like it was holding him together. Lethe felt him first. She was seated on the low stone ring surrounding the training yard, sharpening anchor's edge with a whetstone and no oil, just pressure and dust. Her hand paused mid-stroke. Her eyes turned to the outer wall. She stood without speaking. Calliope emerged from the kitchen at the same moment. The boy, no older than 15, crossed the threshold, dragging his feet, eyes half glazed. He didn't call out. Didn't collapse with drama. He simply fell forward. I caught him. His shoulder was soaked through with half-dried blood. His left forearm was fractured. The parchment he clutched bore no seal, no signature, just a shape drawn in heavy black charcoal. One Lethe and I both recognized instantly. The sigil. Only half. The top arc and 3 intersecting lines. The bottom left unfinished. Lethe whispered, he doesn't know what it means. No, I said. But someone sent him. We laid him out in the back room. Calliope stripped his upper layers gently, examining the wound with practiced speed. The blood wasn't fresh. 2 days old, not infected, but close. The strike had been precise. Narrow blade, shallow but long, aimed to damage but not kill. It was a warning wound. Lethe took the parchment and unfolded it fully. Not just the sigil. Below it, a name. Saren. Lethe stared at it without blinking. Do you know him? Calliope asked. No. She traced the lines again with one fingertip. But I've heard it. I said where. Lethe didn't look up. In the dream. The boy woke just after nightfall. He didn't panic. Didn't flinch. He opened his eyes and stared at the ceiling like someone waiting for a sentence to be passed. I sat beside him. Lethe stood near the door. Calliope watched from the shadows, saying nothing. The boy's voice was quiet. I was told to find you. Who told you? He swallowed. I don't know. What's your name? Tyen. Who marked you? I don't know. You're from Arario. He nodded. Guild. No. Familiar. He hesitated. Was. Which one? He lowered his eyes. I ran from them. Which one? He didn't speak. Lethe stepped forward. You were in Soma's, familiar. He looked up, startled. Yes. Calliope exhaled slowly. I asked, when did you leave? 3 weeks ago. Lethe asked, did you drink? No. You're sure? He nodded. My brother did, I didn't. I leaned back. How did you find this? He held out the parchment again. It was under my cot when I woke up 2 days ago, wrapped in thread. I didn't understand it. Then I started dreaming. Lethe moved closer. What did you see? Tyan blinked. Then, slowly. A room, round, 4 pillars, 3 broken. Lethe didn't react. I did. He continued. 1 pillar was whole. It started glowing. Then it turned. Turned. Rotated, like a mechanism. Lethe knelt beside him. What else? Tyan closed his eyes. Then it pointed at something, a line of light, moving across the floor. I followed it. Where? I don't know. It ended at a wall. Was it a door? No, but I think it wanted to be. Lethe nodded. Then asked the only question that mattered. Why did you run? Tyan's voice broke for the first time. Because I woke up with blood on my hands, and I didn't know whose it was. We kept him with us that night. Calliope moved him to the room beside hers. He didn't ask for more blankets. He didn't cry. He slept with one eye open and one hand resting against his side, as though he expected something to strike in the night. Lethe didn't speak to him again until morning. When she did, it was with anchor unsheathed, resting across her knees, voice level. You're going to show me where it happened. Tyan nodded. Today. Yes. We descended to floor 11. He moved slower than Lethe's normal pace, but she didn't rush him. She didn't command. She walked at his rhythm. I followed from behind, letting their steps lead. At the 3rd junction, Tyan stopped. This is where I woke up after the dream. Lethe looked around, then pointed at the wall. Here. He nodded. I stepped forward. The stone was marked. Not deeply, not freshly, but carved. 3 lines. A single curve. Incomplete. Lethe touched the mark, then looked at the floor. Dust. Unbroken. No passage had opened, but I could feel it. The dungeon had watched him. I said he followed it in the dream, not the body. Lethe nodded. Then it's not the same as what we saw. No. It's a different lock. Yes. Tyan stepped back. Then there's more. Lethe answered without hesitation. Always. That night, Lethe brought Tyan into the courtyard. Not to question him. To train him. She didn't offer instruction. She told him, you don't need to be strong, you need to be ready. He listened. He didn't complain when she corrected his grip. Didn't flinch when she swept his legs from under him. Didn't argue when she told him to swing again, and again, and again, until his arms trembled and his breath came in ragged pulls. Calliope watched from the kitchen. I stood on the roof. The sky was overcast, but no rain fell. Lethe said, you were chosen. Tyan shook his head. No, I. She didn't let him finish. You were maybe by accident, maybe not, but it doesn't care what you want. I'm not ready. None of us are. He stood again. Lethe didn't speak further. She let him swing. By the third day, he stopped asking questions. He just followed her, watched her, listened. He cleaned his blade without being told, began rising before dawn, ate without wasting a crumb, spoke only when needed. The mark on his skin deepened, still partial, but clearer now. The same top half of the sigil. No bottom, no anchor. Lethe's full mark had no mirror. That mattered. Calliope sat with me again under the stars. She said, 2 locks now. 2 keys, I replied. Or 1. Lethe joined us 10 minutes later. She didn't sit. She just looked up. Then said he saw the line of light. I nodded. He followed it to a wall. Yes, but the line kept moving in my dream. Where? To the center. I waited. She whispered. It's pointing to a place that doesn't exist yet. Chapter 24. The Lock That Waits. We left at first light. Lethe carried Anchor on her back, wrapped in new cloth. She hadn't spoken since midnight. I knew she hadn't slept. Tyan had been up too, tracing the sigil into the dirt behind the house with the edge of a stick. Neither of them asked if the other was ready. Neither waited. The sigil had burned hot for 3 days, only for them, not visible, not scalding. But both of them knew. The passage had opened again, not on floor 13. Lower, wider, deeper. Floor 14. The difference was subtle, distance, monsters, structure, but the pattern had changed. The air shifted. The dungeon itself responded, and both dreamers had felt the moment it happened. It was time. We moved quietly but not fast. Tyan's footing had improved. He didn't try to match Lethe's pace anymore. He moved the way she had taught him, minimal wasted energy, weight forward, blade low. He wasn't strong, but he was listening now. That made him dangerous. Lethe didn't speak until we passed the second elevation chamber. Then the pressure's wrong. I nodded. It's dragging up. Normally, the dungeon's mana pushes down, compresses, pulls the air tighter the deeper you go. But now it was inverted. Thin currents rising from below like steam from an open wound. Lethe drew Anchor. Not in warning. In recognition. It's close. We reached floor 14 6 minutes later. There were no monsters. No corpses. No blood. Just stillness. That was how I knew it was real. The dungeon didn't give silence without meaning. Lethe stopped at the third intersection. Looked right. Then left. Then straight. She pointed. There was no visible sign. But I nodded. Yes. We entered a side corridor that shouldn't have existed. It hadn't yesterday. The tunnel was wide enough for 2. Smooth stone, not natural, not dungeon-formed. Too straight. Too clean. But old. Not built recently, just revealed. Lethe stepped through first. Tyan followed. I watched the walls as we passed. No symbols. No glyphs. But the air buzzed faintly. Not with magic. With attention. The dungeon wasn't resisting. It was watching. At the end of the corridor, we reached a chamber. Round. Again. Identical diameter to the one on floor 13. Same shape. Same placement. But this one had no pillars. Lethe whispered, "It hasn't begun here." Tyan said nothing. He stepped toward the center. Then stopped. The floor rippled. I caught him before he fell. The stone hadn't broken, but his body had almost folded inward, as if something had tried to pull him downward through the earth. Lethe stepped into the center. Anchor hummed faintly. Then the sigil on her arm burned. Not in pain. In pressure. I felt it too. Something moving. Not above. Not below. Within. The chamber wasn't hollow. It wasn't a room. It was a skin. And it had started to breathe. Lethe closed her eyes. She knelt, pressed her hand to the floor, then opened her eyes and whispered, "It's waiting for the third." We returned to the surface slowly. No monsters blocked the path. But Tyan was shaking. Not from fear. From something deeper. Recognition. I sat him down behind the main house. Lethe went to sharpen her blade. Calliope came out with water. He drank without speaking, then looked at me and asked the question he'd held in silence for days. "What is it?" I didn't answer immediately. Then, "I don't know yet. But you've seen this kind of structure before." "Yes." "Where?" "In worlds that don't need gods to explain them." He stared at me. Lethe returned. She didn't speak, just leaned anchor against the wall and sat beside him. He asked her quietly, "Do you believe it's alive?" She didn't nod, didn't speak, but her silence was answer enough. That night, Lethe dreamed again. This time, she didn't wake with sweat. She didn't wake panicked. She woke with purpose. I was already in the courtyard when she came out. She said, "I saw the line again." I waited. She said, "It didn't go to a wall this time." "Where?" "To a mirror." That was new. "Did you see anything?" "Yes." "What?" She looked at me. Calm. Steady. The third dreamer. We didn't have time to wait for him to arrive. Because he already had. A message reached us before dawn. A bird. White-feathered. No tag, no seal. Just a folded strip of cloth tied to its leg. Calliope took it, unfolded it, read it once. Then looked at me. "You were right." "Which part?" "The name." I took the cloth. 4 words were written in ink that shimmered faintly, like starlight embedded in parchment. "The mirror faces Saren." Lethe stood. "I'm ready." We descended again before noon. Floor 14 was silent. The corridor was still open. But now the chamber was different. It was no longer empty. A single frame stood in the center. Silver. Polished. No glass. No reflection. But the frame pulsed. Alive. Waiting. Lethe stepped forward. Tyan followed. I held back. Because this was not for me. This was for them. Lethe placed her hand on the edge. The sigil on her skin shimmered. So did Tyan's. The mirror pulsed once. Then opened. Not with a door. With light. The floor shifted. A stairwell descended below. Lethe looked at me. I nodded. Tyan stepped forward. He did not hesitate. The air changed. The dungeon did not resist. The dungeon invited. Lethe looked down the stairwell. Then said, "We're going." I said, "I'll follow." We passed through the mirror before it could close. And as the stair curved inward, spiraling into a deeper part of the dungeon that no map recorded, no familiar named, and no god dared claim, the walls began to whisper. Not in words, but in memory. And we heard the first syllable of what the dungeon used to be. Chapter 25, Descent to the Inner Shell. The mirror closed behind us, without a sound. No seal, no pulse of magic, no trace of the stairwell ever being a wound in the dungeon wall. It simply vanished, stone smoothing over as though it had never opened. It didn't feel like being trapped. It felt like being absorbed. Lethe didn't flinch. Tyan looked back once, then adjusted his grip on the hilt of the cheap sword I'd reforged for him. He was still learning how to hold it right, but he didn't ask if we could still leave. We had already passed the threshold. The stairwell was too perfect. Spiraling downward without flaw in its angle or curvature, the walls fused from a single unbroken material. Not rock, not metal, something between both, dense, heatless, light-absorbent. It didn't echo when we stepped. Even Lethe's footsteps made no sound, and her stance was solid enough to jar floorboards when she moved. After 60 steps, Tyan whispered, "We're not in the dungeon anymore." I didn't correct him. Lethe said, "We're deeper." Not in elevation, in structure. This wasn't a floor, this was a sublayer. A shell, buried between the dungeon's pulse and the stone that held it back. The temperature didn't drop, but the air became thinner. Mana wasn't thinner, though, the opposite. It was denser here than on any of the upper floors. It layered in the walls, pooled in the stairs, hung in the air like a sound that hadn't been made yet. Lethe slowed as the stair began to widen. Ahead, a soft yellow light diffused around a curve in the passage. Natural light, not magic, no flicker, just still, steady illumination. We stepped into a chamber that shouldn't have existed. Wide, oval-shaped, 50 meters across, maybe more. No ceiling above us, just darkness that didn't rise, like a sky that had collapsed but hadn't remembered how to fall. And on the floor, not monsters, not traps, but machines, constructs, old, cold, waiting. Lethe moved to one, with the caution of someone circling a bear in hibernation. Tyan followed, eyes flicking from wall to wall, not fear, caution, not trained, just learning fast. The nearest construct looked humanoid. Not human. Twice Lethe's height, head bowed, arms locked against its sides with bands of the same seamless metal we'd seen in the stairs. Its chest bore a crest. Not divine. Not dungeon-coded. It pulsed once when Lethe touched it. Just once. Then stopped. She turned to me. I nodded. I'm listening. Lethe turned back and placed both hands on the machine's torso. It didn't move, but the air did. A low vibration, too deep for ears, moved through the floor and into the soles of our feet. The constructs weren't awakening. They were responding. The crest on the chest of the figure flared with a symbol I recognized. Not from this world. Not from Tempest, either. From before. Back when I was still alive. Still human. Still in that other body, in that other world. It was a mark from an interface. An operating symbol. But this wasn't a system. This was older. It just looked like one. I stepped forward. The symbol flickered. Then a voice. Low. Male. Clear. Spoke a name no one had said since we entered this world. Rimura Tempest. Lethe looked at me. I didn't respond. The construct didn't move. But its mouth opened. Not to speak. To reveal. Inside was not a voice box, not a core, but a sphere, half buried in crystal, dimly lit from within. The color of it matched Veldora's aura, but without presence. No heat. No pressure. No will. It wasn't a soul. It was a recording. Lethe moved back. She didn't ask. She let me decide. I placed my palm against the edge of the sphere. And I heard it. Not sound. Not vision. A push of memory. Protocol 09. Layered anchor sequence. Subject confirmed. External influence neutral. Containment shell stabilized. Memetic interface incomplete. Awaiting third bearer. The voice wasn't mine. It wasn't anyone I knew. But it used the words I remembered. Not from Jura. From data logs. From project briefs. Lethe stepped forward. What did it say? I repeated it. She didn't understand the terms. That was fine. She only asked the question that mattered. What's the third bearer? I answered her without guessing. Another marked like you. Tyen said, Saren. I nodded. Lethe didn't speak. She stepped around the construct and looked at the others. 5 more. All sealed. All identical. Except for the one at the far right. Its chest plate was open. Empty. Tyen approached it. I think someone already came here. Lethe didn't answer. I crouched beside the central construct. Placed my hand against the base. No seam. No energy feed. No mechanical components. The entire thing was grown, not built. Assembled from something that obeyed laws older than physics. Calliope would need to see this. Lethe turned and said, It's waiting for alignment. I stood. You saw it. In the dream. The room. She shook her head. The others. I stepped toward her. What others? The ones above, on the surface. You mean other dreamers? No. She met my eyes. The ones watching us. We stayed in the chamber for 1 hour. Lethe and Tyen explored the constructs. I recorded every crest. I didn't summon Raphael. I didn't run analysis. Not here. I didn't want to contaminate the signals. This wasn't a place for data. It was a place to be seen. We left the way we came. The mirror hadn't returned. But a second stairwell had opened. This one narrower, more modern, lit with crystals set into the walls. It led to floor 15. We emerged in a tunnel none of the maps included. But it was within known structure. The dungeon had reconnected us. On its terms. At the surface, Calliope waited in the garden. She didn't ask questions. Lethe handed her a sketch of the crest. Calliope nodded. Said nothing. That night, I sat with Lethe on the roof. She said, He's moving now. Saren. Yes. Toward us. No. Then where? Back into the dungeon. Why? Lethe looked up at the sky. It needs a center. Chapter 26. The third moves first. It was still dark when the air turned heavy. Not dungeon heavy, not with mana, pressure, or danger. The weight was different, sharp at the edges, like an intention pushed too far, too quickly. I knew the shape of that kind of movement. Someone with power had done something they weren't ready to control. Saren had moved. I felt it before Lethe woke. I was standing on the east rooftop when the pulse hit. A single line of mana threading up through the stone beneath Arario like a pulled string. Clean, precise, desperate. The mirror had opened again. But not for us. Lethe emerged from the main house 6 minutes later, barefoot, already armed. Her blade was wrapped in cloth again, but only loosely. She wasn't trying to protect it anymore. She was just carrying it until it needed to be used. She didn't ask me anything. She just nodded. I said he didn't wait. She said he never would. That was enough. We didn't gather supplies. We didn't call the others. Calliope would handle the surface. Tyon was still recovering. This was between the dreamers now. The dungeon had made that choice. I was just escorting it to the end. We descended directly to floor 15. It had changed. Not in structure, not in scent, not in the familiar tingle of mana clinging to the ceiling. It had changed in rhythm. The dungeon always breathes. Slow, measured, like a predator watching the world from below. Now it was holding its breath. Lethe slowed at the third tunnel, then turned left. Not from memory, from sense. There was no sigil on the wall, no mana trace on the floor. But she knew. She walked without uncertainty. I followed, silent. She didn't ask where we were going. I didn't explain that I didn't know either. We weren't tracking Saren. We were following his mistake. The mirror he'd opened wasn't whole. We saw that the moment we found it. It stood in the center of a false chamber, too shallow to be natural, too wide to be stable. The floor had begun to peel upward in 3 places, like the dungeon was trying to push the room back out. And the mirror. It stood full frame, carved from the same fused material as before. But its surface was broken. A crack ran from the top left corner to the center. Thin hairline. But wrong. Lethe didn't approach it immediately. She crouched, laid her hand against the stone beside it, and closed her eyes. Her voice was flat. It wasn't ready. I asked, and he forced it. Yes. I stepped forward. The air around the mirror strung slightly, static mana discharge. The kind that came from forced synchronization with unstable structures. Saren hadn't unlocked the door. He'd kicked it open. Lethe rose. He went through. I nodded, and the mirror is still trying to follow him. Can we? We shouldn't. But we have to. I didn't answer. Because she was right. We passed through the broken mirror. It didn't shatter. It bled. Not red, not wet, but wrong. The light on the other side didn't match any layer of the dungeon, not white, not yellow, not crystal lit. It was low blue, like moonlight filtered through water and memory. Lethe passed first. The crack hummed once as she touched it. I followed. It closed behind us, but only halfway. The mirror still hung there, like a door forgotten by time, wedged open just wide enough for regret to escape. The stairwell led deeper than the last one. It wasn't perfect like before. The steps had warps in them. The walls showed stress. Lethe noticed it too. It's not anchored. No. He's beneath the structure. Exactly. We descended for 20 minutes. No monsters. No sound. Only the pressure of the dungeon trying to decide if we belonged. Then we saw the flame. Not fire. Not heat. Just a shape curled against the wall at the bottom of the stairs. A boy. Dark hair. Short, narrow frame. Hands blackened from mana feedback. Saren. He was still breathing. But the air around him was wrong. It crackled faintly, like failed teleportation magic or a broken staff trying to recast itself. Lethe didn't run. She walked to him, crouched, and didn't touch him. She just said his name. He looked up, eyes hollow, and whispered. Too soon. He hadn't eaten in 2 days. He descended on instinct. The mirror he'd forced had dragged him here, past the boundary of stable floors, and into an unformed chamber that even the dungeon didn't know how to shape yet. Lethe sat beside him. I stood behind them both. He whispered, it showed me something. Lethe said, what? A face. Whose? I don't know, but it was old, older than the gods. Lethe didn't flinch. He looked up at me. You're Rimuru. I didn't answer. He didn't ask again. Lethe placed a hand against the wall. It's soft. I knelt. She was right. The wall here breathed. Not metaphorically. It flexed. Not visibly. But I could feel the dungeon's tissues shifting behind it, like a stomach remembering it needed to digest. Saren said, "It wants to be a place." Lethe said, "Then we make it one." He looked at her. "You're still listening." I never stopped. He swallowed hard, then handed her something. A shard. Metal shaped like the edge of a crest. One of the machine's plates from the inner shell. Cracked. "Where did you get this?" I asked. "Here, after I passed through." "You found it?" "No, it grew out of the wall." We stayed with him until he could stand. He didn't ask to leave. He didn't beg for help. He just looked at the wall and the floor and the mirror behind us. And then he said, "There's a room still deeper." Lethe asked, "How do you know?" "I saw it." "In the dream?" "No." "Then where?" He looked at me. "In the reflection." We ascended together. The mirror groaned as we passed through it. More cracked now. The surface dulled. It would collapse within hours. We left it. Lethe didn't look back. Neither did I. At the surface, Calliope was waiting. She didn't speak until Saren had bathed, eaten, and slept for 3 hours. Then she said, "There are 3 now." I nodded. She said, "What happens when all 3 stand in the same chamber?" I said, "The lock opens." "And what's inside?" Lethe answered, "A choice." Calliope looked at me. "What choice?" Lethe didn't answer, because she didn't know yet. But I did, and I didn't say it aloud, because what lay beneath the dungeon wasn't a god, wasn't a monster. It was something older, and it had already decided we belonged to it. Chapter 27. The Lock Judges the 3. We descended before sunrise. Not because time mattered. There was no opening window to the mirror now, no flare of dungeon intent signaling permission, but because I didn't want the surface involved. Too many eyes were watching now. Guild agents had circled the west courtyard twice yesterday without entering. Freya's people had stopped being subtle. Calliope had intercepted a letter I never saw. She didn't pass it to me. I didn't ask for it. We had 3 dreamers now. That was all that mattered. Lethe led. Saren followed, face expressionless, body not fully recovered but posture sharp. The fever in his mana had faded, replaced by something steadier. He wasn't burning now. He was cooling into shape. Tyan brought up the rear. He didn't speak. He hadn't much since Saren arrived. He'd been watching every motion, every change in Lethe's rhythm, every new tension in my gaze. He was learning the way someone learned to dodge, by being hit first. The scar across his left shoulder had stopped itching. That mattered. He hadn't touched it in 2 days. We didn't take the known route. The dungeon changed paths overnight, passages rearranging, silent walls folding in and out like it was breathing with us. The stairs that had led to the second mirror chamber were gone. In their place, a downward slope, narrow, framed by walls covered in branching cracks that glowed faintly violet under the darkness. The cracks weren't damage. They were veins. Lethe slowed at the entrance. Saren didn't hesitate. Tyan looked back at me. I nodded once. He stepped forward. The 3 of them passed in. I followed silently. It was deeper than before. Not just in level, in response. The dungeon was not reacting like it did to adventurers. There were no monsters, no walls adjusting to traps, no pressure spikes. This wasn't the wild part of the dungeon. This was built, shaped, waiting. And the moment all three dreamers crossed the threshold into the final chamber, it moved. Not violently, not with noise, just intent. The walls tightened, not inward, together, as though something had spent decades, centuries, holding itself apart, waiting for these three signatures to arrive. Lethe's sigil burned white. Saren's flared blue. Tyen's flickered. It tried to glow. Then dimmed. Then relit. Staggered. He flinched but didn't speak. The chamber's center began to rise. A column. Stone, smooth, identical to the construct surfaces from the lower shell. It bore no crest, no mark. Only a round depression in the top. Wide enough for 3 hands. Lethe walked to it. Stopped. Looked back. I said nothing. She understood. This part wasn't mine. Lethe placed her palm against the center first. No sound. No light. But the column pulsed once. Acknowledged. Then Saren stepped beside her. Pressed his hand against the right side. His mana synced instantly. The pulse continued. Stronger. Then Tyen. He stepped forward slowly. Paused. Looked at me. I nodded. He reached forward. But the moment his palm touched the column, a sound rang out. High. Shrill. Not loud. But wrong. The dungeon rejected him. Not violently. Not cruelly. It refused. His sigil dimmed again. Then vanished. He fell back 1 step, staggered, knees bending. Lethe turned. Tyen didn't speak. He just sat on the ground, breath short. I wasn't ready, he said quietly. Lethe stepped back from the column. Saren didn't. I walked forward. Kneeling beside Tyen, I placed my hand on his shoulder. That wasn't failure. He nodded, I know. He did. He just didn't know what it meant yet. The column had changed. Now only 2 depressions remained. The third had closed, sealed flush with the stone, as if it had never existed. Lethe frowned. That wasn't his fault. I nodded. But the chamber doesn't care. No. Saren didn't look back. His eyes were on the wall beyond the column. It's open now. Lethe turned. A second door had appeared. No mirror this time. No glow. Just a slit in the stone slowly pulling wide. Not mechanically. Organically. As if the dungeon was separating scar tissue from a wound it had closed long ago. Beyond it, a corridor. Narrow, lit from beneath with slow, pulsing crystal veins. It led down. Lethe hesitated for the first time. Not visibly. But I saw it, in the way her heels shifted before her toes followed. The weight behind her left shoulder leaned back slightly. Saren didn't hesitate. He walked forward. The dungeon let him pass. Lethe followed. I stayed with Tyen. Watched until their figures vanished into the corridor beyond. Tyen spoke without looking up. Should I try again? Not yet. He nodded. Didn't argue. Stay here. I will. Listen. I am. I rose. Then followed the 2 ahead. The corridor was longer than expected. Each step we took down the spiral corridor was met with less resistance. Not like it was welcoming us. Like it was preparing. I counted the pulses in the wall. 38. Then they stopped. We arrived in a new chamber. Not circular. Hexagonal. The floor was made of smooth black stone, rimmed with silver inlaid rings that rotated slowly, not through magic, but through instruction. At the far end stood 3 pedestals. On the left, a mirror smaller than the ones before. On the right, a box sealed with 6 bands of the same glowing vein stone we followed down here. And in the center, a pillar, not like before. This one was hollow. Inside, a crystal. Pale blue. Empty. Saren stepped forward first. Before I could speak, the pillar responded. The crystal began to fill. Not with color. With memory. I saw it. So did Lethe. The image that formed wasn't a face. It was a chamber. The one from before, but larger. Populated. Dozens of figures, hooded, silent, all with marks glowing on their palms. All staring toward a single light. One voice spoke. Not from the crystal. From the air around us. The core is now aware. Saren stepped back. 2 signatures aligned, one incomplete. Lethe frowned. The lock is unstable. The voice paused. 1 fragment missing. Then silence. Saren turned to me. I didn't force it. I believed him. Lethe walked to the pedestal with the box. Reached for the first band. It pulsed. Didn't resist. She pulled. 1 band released. The next 5 held fast. I asked, why did only 1 respond? Saren said, because I'm not the one to open it. Lethe looked at me. I didn't move. Then she said, it's waiting for him. We ascended in silence. Tyan hadn't moved. The column still pulsed with 2 signatures. No third had reappeared. The seal remained closed. He looked at me as we returned. I shook my head. It's not ready. I know. He stood slowly. I'll keep listening. Good. Lethe said nothing. Saren spoke once as we passed the cracked mirror on floor 14. I didn't break it out of arrogance. I nodded. Still broke. I know. He didn't speak again. That night, Tyan drew the sigil again. It still came out wrong. Lethe watched. Didn't interfere. Saren stayed near the south wall of the yard, staring at the sky like someone waiting for a signal no one else could see. I sat with Calliope under the porch. She didn't ask what happened. She just passed me tea. After the second cup, she finally said, only 2 aligned. Yes. And the third. He's not ready. What happens if he never is? I answered truthfully. Then the lock never opens. She nodded, drank her tea, then said, but it's already watching, isn't it? I didn't answer, because she was right. Chapter 28, The Second Seal Unbinds. Lethe didn't speak for 3 days. She drilled, ate, sharpened her blade, slept 4 hours each night, no more, no less. Her movements lost all excess. She wasn't tired, but she moved like someone rationing weight. Anchor never left her side, not even in sleep. She de-stopped using the scabbard entirely. She just kept the cloth wrap tied across her palm, gripping bare steel when needed. I didn't push her. The last descent had made things clear. 2 signatures had aligned. The third hadn't. And the box at the heart of the lower chamber still bore 5 unbroken bands of containment. Lethe had broken the first. No one told her to try again. But she was going to. That was obvious by the way she moved now, Not like an adventurer, not like a soldier, like someone trying to match her shape to a memory that wasn't hers. She was chasing something she'd already seen in the mirror's glow, and she wouldn't speak until she found it. Saren understood. He stopped asking questions. Tyan had gone with Calliope 2 floors down to train. He hadn't asked to come back. He hadn't asked for Lethe. But each evening he drew the sigil again in the dirt, quietly, without being told. The shape was improving. That mattered. But it wasn't his time yet. Lethe's was coming again. On the 4th night, she woke from the dream and came straight to my door. Not hurried. Not anxious. Just awake. I saw it again, she said. I stepped aside and let her in. She sat at the low table, poured tea without asking. Then, it wasn't the box this time, it was the room. I didn't speak. She continued. Not the outer chamber, not the one with the pedestal, beyond that. I narrowed my eyes. There's another layer. She nodded. But it's not open yet. I waited. She lifted her palm. The sigil had changed. Still white, still pulsing slow, steady light. But thinner now, refined. It wasn't flaring anymore. It was focused. It wants me to return. I asked what changed. Lethe didn't hesitate. I stopped trying to carry it. I let the silence settle. Then nodded. We descended the next morning. Just us. Saren stayed above. He didn't argue. He understood that the box was Lethe's now. Not his. Not Tyan's. Not mine. The dungeon hadn't spoken, aloud again, since the first synchronization. But the pedestal still pulsed. We entered the lower chamber, quietly. The spiral corridor hadn't changed. But the box had. Even before Lethe approached, I saw it. The second band was pulsing now. Pale blue. Like breath being drawn before a word. Lethe didn't slow. She walked straight to it. Laid her hand across the top. The first band fell away without a sound. The second resisted. For a moment. Then Lethe exhaled. Not magic. Not force. Just release. The seal snapped open. The second band dissolved. The box began to hum. Not musical. Not mechanical. Like air being displaced in a long-sealed room. Lethe stepped back. I moved beside her. The box opened. Not quickly. It didn't unfold or flare with magic. It separated, as though it had been grown around a core it had always intended to release. Inside, a shard. Not a key. Not a weapon. Just a memory. Lethe stepped forward. Touched it. And everything stopped. Not the dungeon. Not the world. Just us. Inside her mind, or perhaps within the shard itself, I watched. Lethe stood in a chamber. Dark. Cold. Not the dungeon. Not Arario. It was a room shaped by thought. 6 mirrors surrounded her. Each one showing herself, but slightly wrong. One younger. One older. One marked with a different sigil. One wearing a uniform she'd never owned. One smiling. One bleeding. None moved. Then the voice spoke. Not aloud. In her voice. But not hers. You are not chosen, you are choosing. Lethe didn't speak. The mirrors rippled. Shattered. The room shifted. Now it was the lower chamber again. But empty. No box. No pedestal. Just one thing in the center. A sword. Not anchor. Not metal. Light. Lethe stepped toward it, raged, and was pulled back. She opened her eyes. The chamber was silent. I hadn't moved. The shard still rested inside the opened box. She stepped away. Only one more is mine. I asked, what did you see? She didn't answer right away. Then, the others I could have been. And she sat down on the floor. They all failed. I frowned. Failed what? They each carried the mark, but they all tried to be what it wanted. And you did. She looked up. I stopped. We returned to the surface that afternoon. The box had not closed. The third seal did not move. But the air had changed. Again. Now the chamber was humming more than pulsing. The dungeon wasn't speaking. It was preparing. The lock was almost ready. That evening, Saren spoke first. You opened another. Lethe nodded. He looked at me. Is it enough? I said no. Then what is? Lethe said, the third dreamer must rise. Saren looked toward the east field, where Tyne was training again under Calliope's quiet guidance. You think he's ready? Lethe shook her head. Not yet. I stood. He will be. And if he wasn't, then we would wait. Because the dungeon didn't ask for what it could not use. But it never opened its heart twice. Chapter 29. The Blade That Waits. I didn't hear him cry out. Tyne didn't scream, he didn't thrash, he didn't even shift under the blanket, but I felt the mana around his body twist before I stepped through the door, not wild, not panicked, just wrong. It was past midnight. Lethe was on the rooftop again, sword balanced across her lap, posture still. Saren hadn't come back from the outer fields. I left them where they were and entered Tyne's room without knocking. The air was cold. Not chilled. Cold the way a mirror feels in your palm long after the light leaves it. His eyes were open, but he wasn't awake. He lay flat on the mat, hands folded across his stomach, eyes staring upward at something not present in the world. His breathing was shallow. Not dangerous. Just distant. He was inside something. The dream had finally come for him. I knelt beside him, placed one hand on his shoulder. No response. I adjusted the mana around us, not forcibly, just enough to keep the resonance from echoing outward. If Lethe felt the pull, she didn't move. That was good. This wasn't hers. This was his. Tyne stood in the chamber, the one Lethe had described. But it wasn't the same. There were no mirrors, no walls, no reflections. Just a single floor, wide, endless, made of the same pale stone as the lowest layers of the dungeon. And a single shape at its center. A sword. Not sharp, not lit. Just present. Waiting. Tyne walked toward it. He didn't speak. Didn't look around. He just moved, breath quiet, posture tense, but not afraid. The sword didn't glow. Didn't rise. Didn't call to him. But it did exist for him. He reached it. Stopped one pace away. Then the voice came. Not loud. Not deep. Not mysterious. Just direct. A man's voice, calm, clear. Do you want to carry it? Tyne swallowed. Then, I don't know if I can. That's not what was asked. He hesitated. Then, yes. The sword lifted from the ground. Slow. Without magic. Just the gravity of intense shifting. Then take it. Tyne reached. Touched the hilt. It didn't burn. It didn't shine, but the moment he gripped it, his sigil reappeared. The mark on his forearm flared once. Whole. Solid. Accepted. The dream dissolved. He gasped sharply, eyes refocusing, sweat across his chest. Breath caught, but not afraid. I stood as he sat up, slow, steady. He looked at his arm, then at me, then whispered. I saw it. I nodded. You touched it. He nodded back. The sigil accepted me. Yes. Tyan looked at the wall. I didn't prove anything. You didn't need to. He looked at me again. I thought I had to earn it. I shook my head. The dungeon doesn't reward worth. He frowned. Then what does it reward? I stepped toward the door. Clarity. Lethe didn't speak when I passed her. She just looked at me once, then nodded. She felt it then. The mark had returned. All three dreamers were ready now. The lock could open. We didn't descend that morning. I made breakfast. Lethe ate first. Saren followed. Tyan didn't speak during the meal, but his movements had changed. No more hesitation. No more checking Lethe's hands when she moved. No more watching my face for signs. He was simply moving. Calliope watched him from the porch. She said nothing. I didn't explain. There was no need to. She saw the difference immediately. That mattered. It was dusk before we gathered at the edge of the courtyard. Lethe stood ready. Saren carried no weapon. He hadn't needed one since the lock began responding. Tyan wore no armor. No cloak. No protection. Just the sigil on his skin, now perfectly formed, glowing a pale silver white. Lethe said, "This time it opens." Saren nodded. Tyan exhaled once. I said nothing. We descended. The stairwell had changed again. Now it pulsed with the same three-tone rhythm as the original mirror chamber. Each pulse echoed the heartbeat of a different dreamer. I felt it. Lethe's steady, slow. Saren's sharp, distant. Tyan's new, rising. The walls didn't close. The dungeon was no longer hiding. It wanted us to reach the pedestal. And we did. The column stood in the center again. No resistance. All three sigils flared as they approached. Lethe placed her hand. So did Saren. Then Tyan. No rejection. No pushback. Only unity. The column lowered. The box glowed. All 6 bands were pulsing. Lethe looked at me. Do I open it? No, I said. You already opened it. She stepped forward. The third seal unbound. The box split apart. Not in halves. Into 6 layers. Each pulled outward, revealing a core no one had seen yet. Inside, a blade. But not one of steel. One of light. Shaped like anchor. But forged in the absence of metal. It was hers. Lethe reached forward. The blade did not resist. Did not flare. It simply responded. As she touched it, her sigil flared white-hot, then cooled to silver. Saren looked away. Tyan blinked once. I watched. The box did not close, because there was nothing left to seal. Lethe turned. I know what lies below. That night, she told me everything. Quietly. No drama. Just truth. There's a gate beneath the lock. A passage. No, a choice. Between what? She didn't answer immediately. Then the dungeon's voice. And it's silence. I frowned. You mean its end? She nodded. It wants to speak. And if you let it, it becomes. And if you do, it remains what it is. And that's. She met my gaze. A prison. Chapter 30. The dungeon names itself. We began the descent in silence. No commands, no strategy, not even acknowledgement. Lethe walked ahead of the rest. Anchor was on her back, but she didn't touch it. The sigil on her forearm, now dim, steady silver, had changed its rhythm. It didn't pulse, it breathed. Each flicker from the mark aligned with the faint pulses in the stone around us. Saren followed at a measured distance, hands at his sides, eyes alert but not tense. He hadn't spoken since the box opened. Tyen brought up the rear, the smallest, the quietest, but the most focused now. I walked behind them, a half step removed from the path they followed. I wasn't the one the dungeon had marked. I didn't belong to the lock. I wasn't a key. I was a witness. And I was here to make sure none of them disappeared inside it. The stairwell was gone. In its place, a slope, wide, seamless. It didn't curve, it didn't spiral. It led straight downward. The air thickened with each step, not with pressure or heat, but with will. We weren't being allowed entry. We were being expected. Lethe stopped at the first junction. The wall in front of her split without her touching it. Behind it, a circular antechamber, lit from above, though there was no visible ceiling. The walls bore no markings, no inscriptions, but I recognized the symmetry from the lowest levels of the construct chamber. 3 shapes stood in the center. Not pedestals, not constructs. 3 empty frames, each shaped like the mirror that first opened when Lethe was chosen. But these were still. Not broken, not active, just waiting. Lethe stepped forward. The left mirror flared to life. A silver-white sheen rippled across its surface. Her reflection appeared, then faded. She placed her hand on the frame. No resistance. The mirror accepted her. Saren stepped next. His mirror, the rightmost, ignited a moment later. Tyen approached the center frame. It waited, then shimmered. No reflection, just light. He didn't reach for it. He stood there and let the light reach him. I didn't move. No frame opened for me. And that was fine. The lock was not mine to open. Lethe turned her head slightly. They're ready. I nodded. Then go. All 3 stepped forward. And the world changed. The mirrors didn't teleport. They didn't distort space. They opened, like doors made from the oldest part of the dungeon, leading into a space that had never been walked by gods or adventurers. I followed them, though no mirror responded to me. I simply walked through the light. And I was allowed, because I wasn't interfering. Not yet. The final chamber was not large, not imposing, not dramatic. It was quiet, square, 20 meters across. No ceiling, no sky, no mana light. Only one thing filled the room. A voice. It didn't speak at first. It didn't need to. The space itself felt like a sentence, as though the room had been constructed to contain one final statement the dungeon had never said aloud. Lethe stopped 5 steps from the center. Saren and Tyen stood equidistant beside her. The ground at their feet shimmered. Lines formed. A crest. One I had never seen before. Not from the gods. Not from magic. Not from system design. It was made of intersecting arcs, nested symbols, and a single name at the center. Spoken aloud not by a speaker, Not by magic. By the dungeon itself. I am Aulia. Lethe didn't move. The voice was neither human nor divine. It was clear, pure, ageless, not emotionless, but without haste. Saren whispered, "It speaks." Tyen said nothing. Lethe responded, "Then what are you?" Aulia, I was created. Lethe waited. I was not made by mortals, nor gods, nor the will of stories. Saren spoke now. Then who? I was shaped by loss, by intention. I was born from what was taken from this world and could not be returned. The walls pulsed once. Then the voice spoke again. You are the first three to reach me with full clarity. Tyen exhaled slowly. Then we weren't chosen. You chose to survive, and that was enough. Lethe's hand lowered to her side. Why did you create the lock? To protect what lies below. And what is that? The voice paused. Then, memory. Lethe looked at me. So did Tyen. I stepped forward, finally. What kind of memory? The first one. Lethe's voice was quiet now. The first what? The first dungeon. Saren stepped forward. But this is the dungeon. No. The light at the center of the chamber began to rise. A pillar. Not physical. A projection. Inside it, a vision. Not a monster. Not a floor. A city. Not Arario. Older. Wider. Layered in spiraling paths, surrounded by sigils and crests I didn't recognize. The voice explained. There was once a place called the Spiral Seat. It was the first dungeon. A world beneath the world, not born of gods, not born of evil. It was created by mortals who needed to bury something they feared. Lethe watched the projection. I stepped closer. The vision shifted. I saw chambers like the ones we'd passed. Rooms with constructs, pedestals, mirrors, and people. Hooded, silent, marked. 3 at a time. Always 3. The lock was built to keep me quiet. Lethe blinked. Why? Because if I speak freely, I remember what they want forgotten. Tyen whispered, and now? Now I remember too much. The walls began to shift again. Not crumbling. Not moving. Widening. The chamber expanded slowly. Not spatially. Metaphysically. It was making room. Lethe asked, what happens now? You decide. Saren frowned. Decide what? Whether to keep me silent. Lethe exhaled once. Oh, let me speak. Let me show what was taken. Let the world know what lay beneath it before gods fell from the sky. The projection began to pulse. Tyen looked at Lethe. What do we do? Lethe looked at me. So I answered. Do you trust it? Lethe turned back to the pillar. No. Then. She stepped forward. I want to see what it saw. The pillar rose higher. Aulia, the dungeon itself, responded with one final phrase before the floor opened beneath us and the full memory unfolded. Then remember with me.